Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Hannah. I think we actually have a pretty good list of movies today. Nothing scores lower than a 2.5, and it's all newer movies as well. 3 of these have come out in the past month, and the other one is from 2020, and most of them are pretty fun movies, so I've actually had a pretty good movie month recently. So let's get started with Jungle Cruise, which is directed by Wam Colette-Serra. He did other movies like Orphan and House of Wax, and also several Liam Neeson movies. He is also the director of the upcoming Black Adam, so his repertoire is pretty diverse, and I was really surprised to see he had done those other movies. And I've also seen Orphan, and I would suggest it. It's pretty creepy, but it's pretty good for a horror movie. This just came out last month. It is fantasy, comedy, action, adventure, and I gave it 4 stars. Dr. Lily Houghton enlists the aid of wisecracking skipper Frank Wolf to take her down the Amazon in his dilapidated boat. Together, they search for an ancient tree that holds the power to heal, a discovery that will change the future of medicine. So, as you may know, this is actually based off of the ride Jungle Cruise at Disney, and that whole concept just seems really weird to me. But from the trailers and everything, I went into this just wanting the Mummy from 1999, not the weird Tom Cruise one. Just wanting those type of vibes, and I 100% got it. This movie is pretty much a mashup of The Mummy and Pirates of the Caribbean. So it's really fun and exciting, and there's a lot of action, and it's colorful. But we even have The Rock as the Rick O'Connell character. We have Emily Blunt as the Evie character. And we have a Jonathan character. And so you can just kind of see all the inspirations for that. And for something that's based off of a ride, it is just unexpectedly good. This does have some ridiculous moments and some pretty sketchy CGI at times, but it's just a fun, great family movie. And I might be a little biased toward it because I got exactly what I was expecting out of it. So it's just a great popcorn movie, and I would definitely suggest watching it with the family. Next, we have Free Guy, which is directed by Sean Levy, and he also has quite a repertoire of movies. He did all of the Night at the Museums. He did Real Steel, which is one that I really like, actually. And he even directed The Pink Panther. So this also came out last month, and it's sci-fi, comedy, action, adventure, so once again, all of the genres. And I gave this 3.5 stars. When a bank teller discovers he's actually a background player in an open-world video game, he decides to become the hero of his own story, one that he can rewrite himself. In a world where there's no limits, he's determined to save the day his way before it's too late. So this is one where I kind of didn't really go in with any expectations. I feel like I've been hearing about it forever, and so I was just looking for a good time. And I got it. It's entertaining. There's a ton of recognizable faces in this, and I'm convinced that Taika Waititi is just involved in everything now. I feel like I've seen him everywhere lately, and he's either a director, a producer, a cameo, a voice, or just way prominent in the movie. So that man just must never sleep. Since this is based on a video game, prepare for a lot of references at some points. And you can pretty much tell how the game world is based off of GTA. But one thing that surprised me is that quite a good chunk of the movie takes place in the real world. So expect it to flip-flop between that quite a lot. I really did like the concept, but it did feel dull at times. This movie's runtime is just under 2 hours, but for me it really felt like 2.5 hours. Just because it really didn't keep up the pacing well and did get slow. It was fun to talk about with friends afterwards, especially with the movie references, and there's just one kind of fight scene, I guess you would call it, and that just really surprised us and was probably the best part of the movie, to be honest. But one thing my husband definitely wants me to point out is that is not how code works. Next, we have The Block Island Sound. This is directed by Kevin and Matthew McManus. This is the one that came out in 2020. It is a sci-fi horror, and I gave this 2.5 stars. A fisherman's family encounter horrors and dark truths when an ominous force off the coast of Block Island begins killing wildlife. So this is one that I've actually heard about from other YouTubers. I've seen it in their videos before, but I don't know anything about it. I just recognize the title and that it was a horror movie. So I didn't watch a trailer or look up anything about this before going into it. I was just like, oh, hey, I recognize this, let's watch it. It did turn out being extremely predictable. There's some opening scenes where I'm just kind of like, that's gonna be relevant. But it was fun to discuss with my husband afterwards. However, if you are looking for scares like I was, pass on this movie as it's not scary at all. The dad character, he is creepy at times, but it does cross the line into being funny, which isn't what it's supposed to be. So it kind of lost me there a bit. The ending, unfortunately, isn't very satisfying either. It just kind of confirms what you already know and is pretty abrupt. And also, there's a website called Does the Dog Die? And pretty much you just go on there, look up a movie, and it will tell you if there are animals that die in the movie, like if there's a cat or a dog or even like other wildlife and horses and stuff like that. It'll give you all the details about that. And I definitely recommend going there before watching this one, as there is a plot line about animal death. So if you're really sensitive to that like I am, it's definitely worthwhile to check out that website beforehand. And finally, we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. This just came out last week on the 1st here in France, and this is fantasy, action, adventure, typical Marvel movie, and I gave this 4.5 stars. Martial arts master Shang-Chi confronts the past he thought he left behind when he's drawn into the web of the mysterious Ten Rings organization. So right away in this movie, the big, huge plus of it is the fight scenes. Marvel unfortunately has the reputation of those quick jumps between scenes when there are fights happening to where you can't even really tell what's going on. Jump cuts, that's what they're called. I couldn't think of it for some reason. And it was especially prominent in Black Widow, where I was just like, oh, they're fighting. I have no idea what is happening now. But this, they actually show the scene, and it feels very much like a homage to the old martial arts films, and it really reminded me of some Jackie Chan movies, and there's a reason for that. So rest in peace to Brad Allen, who unfortunately passed away before this movie was released, but he was the stunt coordinator for Shang-Chi, and he also worked on stunts with Jackie Chan's team for a really long time, and he was a martial arts master himself. So that's why I could really recognize those aspects in this movie, and it really gave off that feel. For me, this is definitely one of my favorite Marvel movies now. The story is a bit like, huh? But it's so full of mythology and just Chinese like culture, lore, all of that. And just seeing all of those on the screen was so fun. And also, if you are in a country where you don't exactly fully know the language like I am, be prepared, because a lot of this movie is in Chinese. And so here we watched it in VO, which is the original language with French subtitles. So for me, it was Chinese language with French subtitles, and I could understand a bit of it, but unfortunately the subtitles went so quick, I wouldn't be able to read the full sentence before it would flip to the next subtitles. So I eventually just kind of gave up at understanding those parts of it. And I even warned my friends that are in the US right now, watch it while you're in the US, because it might be a little bit difficult back here. One of the main characters, Katie, unfortunately I did find her to be too much of a comic relief character, especially since halfway through the movie we get a second comic relief character, and so it just felt like too much. But I just really loved this movie. There were so many great fight scenes, and just seeing like the creatures they brought in and brought to life, it was just fun. It's a great Marvel movie, and I really hope that Marvel keeps the fight scenes like this in the future, because they were just top-notch. And that's all. We had some pretty good ones this time, and tonight my husband and I are actually going to go see the horror movie Malignant by James Wan. I haven't watched any trailers or read anything about it, and I've done that on purpose because I just kind of want to go into it as blind as possible. And James Wan's horror movies are generally good, so fingers crossed that it stays that way for this one. But as always, thank you for hanging out with me. It is greatly appreciated, and go watch at least 3 out of 4 of these movies because they're actually pretty good. So until next time, bonne journée and au revoir.